Republicans on Capitol Hill voicing growing concern as the president's tariff
will be disastrous for the American economy, the American worker.
Support is growing on Capitol Hill for a proposal to rein in President Trump's authority over tariffs.
The GOP is cracking, and Trump's tariff war is to blame. Republican loyalty is eroding fast, and the shockwaves are hitting America's economy hard. Now, as prices surge and farmers panic, Trump's America First strategy is triggering a rare rebellion inside his own party. The question: will this trade gamble cost Republicans the election and the economy its stability? This week, Republican lawmakers went public with blistering concerns over the White House's sweeping new tariffs. In a dramatic Senate hearing, Trump's top trade official faced direct fire, not from Democrats, but from his own side. Behind the drama, real-world consequences, from supply chain gridlock to surging consumer prices. As of April 9, 2025, Trump's updated tariff strategy is now in full effect. It includes 60% tariffs on Chinese imports, new duties on Vietnamese products, broader levies on aluminum, steel, and key electronics from Asia. The goal? Punish foreign competitors and bring manufacturing back to U.S. soil. The risk? A self-inflicted economic crisis. Over the past week, the Dow Jones Industrial Average plunged over 100 points, and economists at Oxford Economics estimate these tariffs could shave 0.8% off U.S. GDP growth by year's end. That's nearly $200 billion in potential economic losses. During a Senate Finance Committee hearing on Tuesday, Republican Senator Thom Tillis, usually a Trump loyalist, unleashed frustration at U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. "Whose throat do I get to choke if this proves to be wrong?" Tillis asked, demanding accountability if the plan triggers layoffs and recession. North Carolina, Tillis's home state, has seen over $16 billion in foreign manufacturing investment since 2015. Those businesses now face uncertainty over access to critical materials. Meanwhile, Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma shared a stunning example. A company in his state spent millions of dollars shifting production from China to Vietnam, only for Trump to slap new tariffs on Vietnamese goods, rendering the move useless. When Lankford asked Greer for a timeline on relief or clarity, the answer was cold. "We don't have any particular timeline. The outcome is more important than setting something artificially for us." The fallout isn't hypothetical. It's already here. Casey Ames, CEO of Harkla in Boise, Idaho, saw his company's import tax jump from $26,000 to $346,000 overnight. His company, which makes therapeutic toys for children with special needs, is now considering shutting down a product line and laying off staff. "We just can't afford it," Ames told reporters. "This is going to crush small businesses like ours, and the cost is falling directly on consumers." A recent analysis by the Peterson Institute for International Economics found that Trump's past tariffs cost the average American household $300 per year. That figure is now projected to exceed $2,000 under this expanded policy. So why are Republicans still divided? Some, like Senator Steve Daines of Montana, are cautiously hopeful. He praised ongoing negotiations and said an uptick in the stock market might be a sign these tariffs are a means, not the end. But even Daines warned, "Who pays these high tariffs? It will be the consumer. I'm worried about the inflationary effect." And the fears go deeper. If trade partners like China retaliate with their own tariffs, U.S. exports could suffer. China currently buys nearly $15 billion in American agricultural goods annually, sales that could vanish if a trade war intensifies. Senator Chuck Grassley is already moving to act. He introduced a bipartisan bill to give Congress the power to approve future tariffs. Similar legislation in the House has gained traction, though Trump has vowed to veto any challenge to his authority. Even within the GOP, nerves are fraying. Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana admitted he's getting flooded with calls from worried businesses and has no clear answers. "I don't think there's any way to double or triple your tariffs on the world when you're the wealthiest country in all of human history without being somewhat shambolic." This is more than a policy debate. This is a battle for the soul of the Republican Party and possibly the future of the U.S. economy. With key Senate races and the 2024 presidential election looming, Republicans now face a brutal choice: stay loyal to Trump's economic nationalism or distance themselves before the fallout turns fatal at the ballot box. Will these tariffs truly protect American workers or plunge us into recession?
China, 67%.
President Trump's announcement of new tariffs.
To the Trump administration's sweeping new tariffs.
I always say tariffs is the most beautiful word to me in the dictionary.
In a shocking move shaking global markets, U.S. President Donald Trump abruptly imposed a staggering 125% tariff on Chinese imports, while simultaneously suspending tariffs for over 75 other countries for 90 days. This move not only sent shockwaves through financial markets, but also raised significant questions about Trump's true strategy behind this trade war. Was this merely a strategic bluff intended to mislead China? Or is there a deeper conspiracy lurking behind the scenes? Geraldo Rivera, a renowned commentator, praised Trump's move as a brilliant bluff, catching China and the entire world off guard. I believe that he ambushed China. I believe that he suckered the whole world into believing that he was going to go down in this hara-kiri, this suicide mission against the world, Rivera said. Rivera argued that Trump strategically ambushed China through unpredictable tariff tactics, creating chaos in the markets but ultimately securing an advantage for the United States. Historically, Trump has wielded tariffs as political and economic leverage. Back in March 2018, he applied tariffs of 25% on imported steel and 10% on aluminum, significantly lower than today's 125% tariffs against China. Trump's prior peak tariff levels on Chinese goods had never exceeded 25%, even at the height of the 2018-2020 U.S.-China trade war. By comparison, the recent escalation to 125% is an unprecedented and extreme development, implying a deliberate provocation. China swiftly retaliated, imposing an aggregate tariff of 84% on American goods and implementing severe restrictions on 18 major U.S. corporations, mainly in defense industries. This escalation by Beijing surpasses any previous retaliatory tariff it imposed during Trump's initial presidency, when maximum reciprocal tariffs rarely exceeded 25% to 30%. This new level suggests a readiness by China to engage in a long-term economic war. The global financial markets reacted dramatically. Following Trump's initial tariff announcement, investors initially panicked, causing severe market downturns with the Dow Jones Industrial Average plunging nearly 800 points in a single session. However, immediately after the news broke regarding tariff exemptions for other countries, a swift reversal ensued, with the S&P 500 surging approximately 9.5%. This roller coaster response highlights both the fragility and volatility of current global market sentiment and demonstrates investors' cautious optimism regarding possible future trade negotiations. Many analysts question whether Trump's recent actions are simply a trade tactic or part of a deeper political conspiracy. By singling out China while temporarily exempting other countries, Trump could be attempting to isolate Beijing on the international negotiating stage. Moreover, with the U.S. presidential elections looming, questions arise about whether this foreign policy strategy is designed to strengthen Trump's domestic political standing. Behind the scenes, whispers about hidden agendas and clandestine operations are intensifying. Sources within Washington have suggested that several key negotiation documents between U.S. and Chinese diplomats have mysteriously gone missing in recent weeks. These alleged documents reportedly contained critical details about planned concessions and secret trade alignments involving other economic powers. The absence of these papers casts shadows over the transparency and true motivations behind Trump's actions. One theory suggests the tariff hike is less about immediate economic gain and more a calculated political maneuver designed to isolate China from the rest of the world, particularly ahead of the upcoming presidential election. By temporarily removing tariffs from traditional allies and neutral countries, Trump might be deliberately positioning China as a singular adversary, rallying international and domestic support around his aggressive stance. Adding intrigue to the controversy, some insiders claim these missing documents could have contained evidence of covert U.S. strategies aimed at disrupting China's long-term economic plans, including initiatives related to the Belt and Road Project and advanced technology sectors. Could the sudden disappearance of such sensitive materials be part of a deliberate cover-up to mask deeper geopolitical intentions? Trump's 125% tariff on Chinese imports is not merely an economic decision, but rather a complex political maneuver with multiple layers of significance. This decision impacts not only U.S. China relations, but also reshapes the global trade landscape. However, the lingering mysteries and unanswered questions surrounding these actions continue to captivate public attention, compelling observers to closely watch future developments in this intense trade war.
It was a mistake for China to retaliate. That's why there will be 104% tariffs going into effect on China tonight at midnight. President Trump is taking action.
We'll fight to the end. That's China's chilling message after President Donald Trump's 104% tariffs on Chinese goods kicked in. Beijing is furious. Washington is defiant. And now, the world is staring down the barrel of a trade war unlike anything we've seen before. Is this Trump's boldest move yet, or a reckless escalation that could tear the global economy apart? As of Wednesday, April 9, 2025, President Trump's latest reciprocal tariff hike has officially taken effect, slamming Chinese imports with a crushing 104% tax. Hours later, China vowed resolute and effective measures in response. This isn't posturing, it's economic warfare, and neither side looks ready to back down. The seeds of this new confrontation were planted in early February when President Trump returned to the White House and wasted no time reactivating his signature trade policies. A 10% tariff was slapped on Chinese goods. Beijing responded. Then came a 20% increase, followed by another 34% jump in early April. But the tipping point arrived this week. After China stood firm on its promise to impose 34% retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods by noon Tuesday, President Trump hit back hard. He tacked on an additional 50%, bringing total tariffs on Chinese imports to a staggering 104%. From Trump's perspective, this is about strength, about sending a message to Beijing and to the world that America won't tolerate what he calls economic bullying. But China sees it differently, calling the U.S. move domineering and unacceptable, and warning that any further escalation will be met with fierce resistance. Let's break this down. First, China's immediate response wasn't just fiery rhetoric. It was a strategic warning. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian condemned the U.S. action as arbitrary and extreme pressure, insisting that Beijing would never accept such behavior. The message was clear. If Washington wants a trade war, Beijing is ready to go the distance. Second, while China hasn't announced new retaliatory measures yet, it's laying the groundwork for a long game. A newly released white paper accuses the U.S. of trying to disrupt the global economic order and weaponize supply chains. The tone is defiant, but measured, signaling that China wants to appear firm, but still reasonable. Third, inside China, business leaders are feeling the pressure. One toy seller in Shantou told CNN she feared she might lose her job, saying the only way to cope is to smile with bitterness. Her company is now considering abandoning the U.S. market entirely. But perhaps the biggest signal came not from China's economic ministry, but from President Xi Jinping himself. On the very same day Trump's tariffs took effect, Xi convened a rare Communist Party summit on peripheral diplomacy, pledging to deepen ties with China's neighbors and strengthen regional supply chains. Translation: if the U.S. wants to close the door, China will open others. Supporters of Trump's move argue this is long overdue. They say China has manipulated trade for years, undercutting U.S. industries, stealing intellectual property, and flooding markets with subsidized goods. This, they argue, is finally a president doing something about it. But critics see a dangerous pattern. By slapping massive tariffs without coordination, Trump risks isolating America from allies and disrupting global trade networks. Countries like Japan and South Korea, already hit with 24% and 25% tariffs, are now scrambling for separate deals with Washington. Others, like Vietnam and Malaysia, are warning of collateral damage. Inside the U.S., the economic blowback could be swift. Higher import costs mean higher prices for consumers. American exporters, especially in agriculture and tech, now face mounting uncertainty as Beijing prepares its response. And let's not forget the political theater. In a closed-door meeting Tuesday night, Trump reportedly mocked foreign leaders, claiming they were kissing his A and begging for exemptions. "Please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything, sir," he quoted them as saying. Whether that bravado wins him praise or backlash remains to be seen. But one thing is certain, this is no longer just about trade. It's about power, prestige, and control over the global economy. The U.S. and China are locked in a new kind of conflict, one fought not with tanks or missiles, but with tariffs, press releases, and geopolitical chess moves. Trump's 104% tariff may be the boldest play yet, but it could also be the one that breaks the system. Is this economic patriotism or a reckless act of self-sabotage? What do you think? Is Trump defending American interests or throwing fuel on the fire?
Donald Trump is raising tariffs against China to 125% after China raised retaliatory tariffs on US goods to 84% overnight.
And now they have 125% tariffs that will be effective immediately.
At precisely 7:42 a.m., President Donald Trump took to Truth Social and unleashed a bombshell. Tariffs on all Chinese goods would skyrocket to 125%, citing Beijing's disrespect for global markets. Simultaneously, over 75 allied nations would receive a 90-day grace period, with tariffs temporarily dropped to 10%. Within minutes, Wall Street lit up like Times Square on New Year's Eve. The Dow Jones surged by a staggering 2,963 points, its single largest daily increase in modern history. NASDAQ leapt 12%. Semiconductor stocks, shipping companies, and U.S. steel producers all spiked. Billions of dollars changed hands, but not everyone was caught off guard. The timing raised immediate suspicions. Who knew beforehand? Who had access to information that wasn't public yet? And how much money was made in the shadows of this announcement? Senator Adam Schiff quickly responded in a fiery press briefing. We're looking at an extraordinary swing in the markets, immediately after a policy change known only to a select few in the administration. If this doesn't scream insider trading, I don't know what does. He's calling for a full congressional investigation, and what they might uncover could expose one of the most sophisticated financial conspiracies ever tied to a sitting president's administration. According to a leak from a financial compliance official at FINRA, Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, a cluster of accounts placed unusually aggressive call options on shipping companies, U.S. steel manufacturers, and agricultural exporters hours before Trump's announcement. One such account reportedly made $14.7 million in 90 minutes. What makes it worse? Several of these trades came from firms that had no previous position in these sectors until just before the tariff news, and at least 3 were traced to entities tied to former administration advisors or family investment vehicles. Former SEC investigator Lisa Sherrill remarked, these trades weren't just lucky guesses. They were laser-targeted bets, the kind you only make if you know what's coming. This isn't retail speculation. This is strategic warfare. Washington has a dirty secret. It's been here before. In 2020, Senator Richard Burr, RNC, dumped up to $1.7 million in hotel and travel stocks right after receiving classified COVID-19 briefings. Burr later stepped down from his Intelligence Committee role when an FBI probe was launched. Paul Pelosi, husband of then-Speaker Nancy Pelosi, earned millions trading stock options in companies about to benefit from legislation his wife was involved in. When pressed by reporters, Pelosi said only, "I trust my husband's judgment." In 2011, a 60 Minutes report uncovered that lawmakers were exempt from insider trading laws, leading to the 2012 Stock Act, which was quietly weakened just 1 year later. As Schiff told MSNBC, we've spent decades watching members of Congress and officials make convenient trades right before legislative changes. But when it's coming from the Oval Office itself, that crosses a dangerous line. A senior cybersecurity analyst working under DHS, speaking on condition of anonymity, confirmed that server logs related to White House economic meetings between April 5th and 9th mysteriously went offline shortly after Schiff announced his inquiry. Meanwhile, an internal memo from the Office of Government Ethics reportedly warned of unusual access to the U.S. Trade Representative's calendar, which was later manually overridden by someone using administrative clearance credentials. The memo, dated April 8th, is said to have since gone missing. This feels eerily like the early stages of Watergate, said retired Justice Department prosecutor Emily Voss. Only this time, it's not about wiretaps or hotel rooms. It's about markets, money, and manipulation on a global scale. If these allegations prove true, we may be witnessing one of the most significant financial crimes ever committed by an American government, a breach not just of ethics, but of public trust. This isn't just about Trump, Schiff, or partisan warfare. This is about whether or not our financial system is rigged from within. And if top officials can turn confidential policy into profit without consequence, where does the corruption stop? Schiff may be facing political pushback. Many in the GOP are already calling his investigation a witch hunt, but the data, the timing, and the history say otherwise. Markets rely on fairness and transparency, said economics professor Dr. Jordan Yang. The moment political insiders can trade on secrets, the game is rigged. Period. The question now isn't whether someone profited from insider information, but how many did, and how far this goes.